Hello, welcome to Miniature Realms. My name's Stuart. Blood Bowl Season 3 is of course with us now. I've already looked at all the contents of the starter set and given you a painting video for the Bretonnians. Well, this one is the same but for the Tomb Kings.
Miniature Realms is proudly sponsored by Counter-Attack Bases. They stock a wide range of counters, gaming aids and movement trays for multiple game systems and offer custom items to suit your club, your event or even your podcast or YouTube channel. Check out the link in the video description. If you haven't caught those previous videos yet, I'll pop links in now. So the full review of nearly all the stuff on release day and my painting video for Bretonnians. But we're here today to talk about Tomb Kings and the other miniatures in the set. And when I played Blood Bowl back in 2nd and 3rd edition as a teenager, and I think I underaged myself in the previous video, I think around 1991 I actually started, I really love creating my own teams and making their own logos, and the polystyrene pitch is perfect for that because you can make your own touchdown strips, and it was just great having your own Enzos, etc. A little bit older now, but I still thought it was fun to create a team name and a bit of a logo using Canva for this team. And that logo informed the colours for this team. We're going to have gold on there, of course, they're Tomb Kings, but I wanted to be different to my old world Tomb Kings. I wanted to move away from the blues. I wanted to use white as one of the stronger colours, which can be a little bit tricky sometimes when you're doing lots of bone as well. But I started here with a black primed miniature, and I'm doing a zenithal with my airbrush. If you're not an airbrush user, you could just go with a grey prime and then a heavy dry brush, or you could just go with a white prime and then still cover most of this tutorial. After my heavy zenithal with the airbrush, I'm doing a bit of a dry brush as well. I'm really trying to catch all the edges of the detail. This is using the more modern style dry brushes, the circular ones, very little paint on there, nice dry palette there as well. So I'm really just picking up the detail, especially over all of those bandages and wrappings and things. It will really help me when I add the first base layers of colour, which are mostly going to be contrast paints, which will really get the miniature off to a quick start, and then I'll add some further highlights afterwards. It is perhaps unsurprising that I'm going to start with Skeleton Horde. And what I'm doing here is giving a nice even coverage over everywhere that is bone or bandage wrapped, including the very small gaps here or there where it's peeking to what's underneath. I'm not too worried about getting the Skeleton Horde in there. I'll change the colour a little bit on that afterwards. But I'm aiming for a really nice high tabletop standard, but something to game with, not trying to win any awards with this paint job. I am doing my best to try and keep the paint off a few areas, some of the flat areas of the armour, which they're going to be white, and also the shorts as well, because they're going to be white, and I want to make sure that the trim on them is nice and clean. So I'm just trying to be a little bit tidy, but it's pretty easy on this miniature. Next up is to create a really nice base for that white. We've already got a zenithal, a fairly heavy zenithal using white with the airbrush anyway, so that's pretty good. So I'm just toning it down and glazing it down and shading a little bit with apothecary white. It's essentially a grey wash. So you apply it nice and thinly, let it run into the recesses, giving you a little bit of extra shadow. Wipe it away if it looks like it's pooling on the flatter areas, but it gives you a really nice base to work on over the top of a zenithal or a nice clear white spray if you're not using an airbrush. Little bit more white on the helmet as well. I really don't want to dominate it with the gold. I want it to be a really nice balance between a cleaner white, a cool white, and the gold, and then all the sort of the decaying wraps and bones. Now for some contrast Blood Angels red. This will give some real punch to the colour, but not too much of it to overpower. And you've got some nice stripes and banding on the shorts here, so it's perfect for that. It means you've got the main white uniform area, but the spot colour is the red, and that's exactly what I want. And if you remember from that basic logo, the edges of the logo were in red as well. So I want to get that effect from the logo and that idea transferred over to the miniature here. There are a few other little areas we can add some red to as well. You've got that little sash hanging down from the groin area. A lot of it's going to be gold armor, but we've got a red little bit as well, and there's a few other little trim areas like on the helmet. We can add a little bit of red in there as well, just to break it up and add that spot color. Little bits of the rolls where the socks would be at the top as well. I've alternated those, the same with the pattern on the armor at the top. I'm going to use some Mantis Warriors green contrast now, very thin areas, just where there's a little bit of flesh showing through. Now, this is quite a bright colour. The flesh would probably be a sort of a dark black colour. I've deliberately chosen this just because I want it to be bright and cartoon-esque, and there's so little of it showing. If I go for a dark colour, it might be lost a little bit. So we've got a few fingers showing. There's a little bit on the backs of the heels of the feet, little gap on the leg here or there, maybe a little gap in the back. But this is it. This is all I'm going to do with this for now, apart from some blood effects later on. Next up, I'm doing a little bit of dry brushing with a bone colour. Any bone colour will do, really, just to go over the bandages and wraps. Now, I'm not always going to mention every single colour, but I will hold it up to the camera, so you can always pause and make a note of it. I'll also post up a picture with a full list of all the paints used on my Patreon. That's something that will be available as free, so you don't have to be a fully paid member in order to get access to that. But all the information is in this video when I hold it up to camera, so if you don't have to go and sign up to Patreon to get that, but it is there if you want it, and it will be available probably the day after this video is out. Follow up that bone dry brush with a little bit of the same but with white, much less, hardly any paint on the brush here at all. So I'm just kind of tickling it across some of the areas where the light would catch the most, and just makes it pop and stand out a little bit more. What you don't want is it to look dry and chalky and streaky here. If you've got that much, you've got too much paint on it. Now it's time to get some of the golds down. I'm starting with a darker, dull bronze colour here. Now, bronzes and golds are a little bit interchangeable with names depending on the paint ranges that you use. But what I want to add here is a colour that makes the metal look old, but I don't want it to look too cold because we've got a lot of white on this miniature, so I want it to be a little bit more warmth. Sometimes with desaturated colours they can look a little bit cold and dull as well, but this has got a little bit more warmth than some of the ancient gold style colours out there at the moment. That's why I'm starting with this as a base. Much of it will be covered as I highlight through the next stages, but as you can see, I'm just going around and pretty much covering everything that's not already been painted as in a white or a bone colour. So any remaining metals that are left, that's it, they're going to be gold, but nice big white patches on those shoulders to really stand out as a uniform. A few final touches of that gold, and I think the miniature's starting to come together now, and it's fitting in with basically what I wanted at this stage. I think I've made the right choices. It's going to work. This is labelled as a copper, but again, a slightly warmer goldish colour. You can make your own little triads, I quite often do, and you're just trying to work your way through a colour range really and make things pop and stand out. So this was the next one in my little list, and I'm leaving a lot of that initial colour still on the miniature. I'm probably only covering about 60% of what I did before and just trying to catch where the light hits. Now, if you can keep the miniature in a fairly standard position, so you're not turning it too much upside down, with metallic paints you can quite often see where the light, your painting light, is actually landing on the miniature. That gives you a little bit of an idea where to put the next layer of paint. You can't completely follow it because obviously the light moves as you move the miniature, but you can see here I'm just focusing towards the top of the back of that breastplate there, and it's darker down the bottom, and you can start sort of blending it down and making it pop and stand out a little bit more. And this is rich gold, and my final highlight on the golds in this paint scheme. So again, same as before, just going back and checking where the light would catch and just adding in little dots of this. Some of the larger areas with gold, I'm obviously adding a little bit more, but I want to make sure that both the previous gold colours are still showing. So you see that transition to the most brightest area and the darkest area. You don't want to completely cover all the work we've done before, and you're just treating the metallic paint the same way as I would with any triad of any standard colour. This is a pre-mixed oil wash, and it's a sepia colour essentially. So if you don't want to use oil washes, you'll be using something like a Seraphim sepia. I prefer to use oil washes for a number of reasons, and I talked about this a little bit in the previous video, so forgive me if you just watched the Bretonnia Blood Bowl team tutorial as well. But it runs into all the recesses. It works like a pin wash. It doesn't settle on the flat surfaces anywhere near the same way. You don't get the pooling, you don't get the tide marks that you get with standard washes. So it really nicely runs away from those flat areas, which is exactly what you want. It also, when it dries, looks like it's weathered, which looks really great as well. And then the final best thing is you can wipe it away afterwards. There are some things you need to be aware of. If you apply too much oils over certain paints, you could damage the paint job underneath. Some people will gloss varnish, etc. As long as you're being sensible with it, I don't find you need to do that, especially over metallic paints like this. They're very robust, and I've definitely not varnished here. I'm just putting this oil wash in all the little recesses, letting it run in there, and then afterwards, once it's touch dry, you can take it away any way you don't want it, using some artist white spirit, and you'll see me do that in a moment. And this stage really is one of the best. So this is a fast drying thinner. You can use artist white spirit like a Sansador or something like that. A little bit on a cotton bud or Q-tip, or on a small brush, and use old brushes for this. Don't use your acrylic brushes. It does wreck the bristles. And I can just clean away any of the oils that have dried on the surface where I don't want them. And you can even leave it a couple of days and still come back and do this, because it takes a while for oils to fully set. I'm just dabbing away in the center of those white panels, anywhere where I think it's got a little bit too dulled by the oil wash, but it leaves it in all those recesses, and it's just such a beautiful effect, and it's so easy. Now it's time to come back and do those highlights. So we're going to highlight the red. Now essentially I've got a mid-tone and a highlight, because using the contrast as the base tone. And I think the best way of doing it, if you've done a zenithal highlight to start with, and then you've done a bit of a dry brush underneath as well, when you add that first contrast layer, you get some natural looking highlights. That's the way contrast works. So I tend to try and find a mid-tone that's like the top of the lightest color that's left after the contrast paint's gone on. So not that dark in the recesses, that becomes your mid, that becomes your shade, and then your lighter areas become your mid-tone, and then you want to pick a next color up as well to do that top highlight. And there's very little red on here, so you're going around and doing a lot of thin highlights. If you want to go this far, you don't have to. You can leave all of this out. So you've got these little sort of patterns inside the armor there. I'm pretty much drawing little squares around the edges of those bits of detail with the lightest color. Now a similar story with the white areas, but I'm just going to use white for this as well, because that's all that's needed. Sometimes you might want to use greys. So I've just got a little bit on my wet palette, got it nice and thin. I'm just picking out some the highlighted areas, so where the folds in the fabric push up a little bit, just some thin lines there, and then a little bit of feathering out to make it not look too stark. It's a little bit easier to see on the back of the shorts there. You've got the edge of the shorts above the waistband, and you've got those folds and things, so you're just putting some highlight lines on there, but you're not going overboard, because there's a nice colour that's being created via the airbrush, and then also using the particle white contrast colour as well. But I think it starts to come together quite nicely. It is a matter of playing around slowly with a thinned white paint, and this is the hardest part of this paint job, if you were to follow it, to make that white smooth and make it really stand out from the bone color. And that's the most important thing here. Playing around with a cream white tone being the bones and the bandages, and this sort of brighter white here is dangerous if you don't get it right, because they're very similar colors. But I think it stands out enough the way I wanted it to make it worthwhile taking that risk and going for this scheme. Adding the transfers that you get in the box here, just a little bit onto the back of the middle of the gold plate there, just to sort of break it up a little bit, adds a little bit of extra detail. And I put some on the front as well with a number and the logo, brushing in a little bit of dry pigment onto the base. Now in the last video I showed you what I was doing at this stage as well, and added a couple of links in. I'll do the same here for you about how to apply decals and all my thoughts and processes on the way I do bases. That is much better than making this video another 10 minutes long talking about all the different options for basing, but I use very simple products that look great in my opinion. So check those videos out, and you'll have a good idea how to do a good job of adding decals or transfers and make some pretty cool bases, but are also quite simple. And just as with the Bretonian, it's fun on the bases to add a little bit of a white chalk markings, just to makes it really look in place on a Blood Bowl pitch, rather than just sort of standing on a regular grass pitch. A nice little black rim, which is my favourite to do to tidy up the bases, and there he is, and I'm pretty happy with him. But let's have a look at some proper pictures. Well, I really enjoyed painting him a lot more than I thought I would, actually, and it's a lot quicker than painting the Bretonians. I've given myself a bit of a quandary now about what team to finish first. So do let me know in the comments which one you'd like to see. Let me know what you think of it. Did it work, having the bandage colours next to the purer white? I think it does, and I think having the little bits of green tinged skin showing through does enough to break that up as well and add a little bit of extra interest. But yeah, I'll be interested to know what you think of that. have you got your own Tomb King team, or are you planning your own Tomb Kings team with this? And what have you named them? What colour scheme are you going to go with? Are you going to go for the traditional kind of golds and blues and things that we've seen with the studio paint job and the Tomb Kings in square bases for years and years? Or are you going to go for something a little bit different as well? And that, like I've tried to do here. And I know in the old fantasy Tomb King books of old, there are alternative schemes using white and red, so it's not exactly completely new, but I thought it was fun to try something. Yeah, like I said, I think it's worked. Also, let me know what kind of future Blood Bowl content you'd like to see from me. I've painted something from each of the two teams now. I've done an unboxing. I've nothing planned in the short term, the next couple of weeks or so, but let me know, are there other teams you'd like to see me paint something for? Maybe something bigger in the future, maybe next year doing a Blood Bowl stadium or something would be really cool, but that is a big project, so definitely one for next year.
Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. I need to decide now which team to finish painting first. Having painted my test miniature and created my scheme and created my name and the badge for my teams, I need to go away and decide which one to finish painting first for my games at home with my family, and whether we do it at a league or whatever it happens to be over Christmas. I think there's going to be some Blood Bowl played soon. If you have come to the channel new, do check out all the other videos on the channel as well. Loads and loads of stuff, lots of different game systems, a lot of Games Workshop stuff, a lot of old world stuff as well. I think there's over 500 videos now, so do go and check out all the other content. If you like what you see, please subscribe, like and comment on this video. It really helps it be seen by other people. And if you'd like to support me even further, please do check out my Patreon in the link in the video description. It is the very best way of supporting me and helping me make videos like this. I absolutely love doing it, but it does take a lot of time as well, so the financial support really means I can afford to keep doing it. So please do check that out. Check out all the other affiliate links as well, including for the Warhammer merch store if you're looking for calendars for next year, gifts for Christmas, mugs, t-shirts, that kind of thing. It's another way of helping me as well when I get a little bit of a kickback from any purchase you make. And also please do check out the channel sponsor, Counterattack Bases. But thank you very much for watching. Take care, and I'll catch you soon.